Hi everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to have you with us for this webinar. We're going to be talking to Bill McSorley today from the Edison Township Public Schools, talking about high-density Wi-Fi. My name is Emily and I am a product marketing manager here at Meraki. Before we actually get started with the webinar though, I do have one very quick question, or favor I should say, to ask of you. I'm going to be launching a poll on your screen. It should be popping up momentarily. It's a one-question poll on how you first heard about Meraki. If you don't mind filling that out, that would be fantastic. I'm going to leave this poll open for about half a minute. I see that many of you are filling out this poll. Thank you so much. Leave it open for maybe another 15 seconds. Okay, I see actually that more than 90% of you have voted, so thank you so much. I'll actually close it right now, and we can get started with the webinar. So I wanted to briefly go over the agenda for today. We will do a brief introduction of Meraki and our cloud networking architecture for those of you who may not be familiar with us. And we will then launch into a case study of the Edison Public Schools, and we're really excited, like I said before, to have Bill McSorley, who's the Chief Information and Technology Officer of the Edison Township Public Schools, with us today to talk about his particular experience with Meraki at his schools. And then we will do a live demo of the Meraki network and wrap up with a quick overview introduction to the product families and get to any Q&A that we do not get to during this webinar. And that reminds me to tell you that at the bottom right corner of your screen, I believe there is a question or chat box. Please feel free to ask a question at any time during this webinar. My good friends and colleagues Olivia and Jackie are here with me today, really excited to answer any and all questions that you have. Also, if you have questions for Bill during the presentation, please let us know as well, and we'll be collecting those, and we'll try to address those during the webinar or right after the presentation. And one more item of business before we get started. For those of you that are qualified IT professionals on the call today, we're excited to offer you a free access point for your evaluation. It comes with a 3-year cloud management license. It's free. It's yours to keep and use. It's a great way to get your hands on Meraki technology. And it will basically have the features that you will see demoed today. So you can go home and try out what you see here once you get it. But to get it to you, we do need to confirm your shipping information. So if you don't mind giving us a call after this webinar, the phone number to call should be in a reminder email that you would have received just prior to this webinar. It'll have the name and phone number of your Meraki rep in your email, and that's who you would call. But again, if you have any questions, just let us know. Now briefly, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Meraki, I did want to give a quick introduction. For those of you who don't know, we are the leader in cloud networking. We have thousands of customer networks deployed all over the world. We were actually founded in 2006 by a research team at MIT. And while at MIT, they were working on a project, the RoofNet project. Essentially, they were putting wireless access points on the roofs of houses and apartment buildings in Cambridge and trying to figure out how to manage those over the internet. It wasn't called the cloud back then, but you can say that we have been in the cloud since day one. And we actually do oversee the world's largest cloud networking deployment. It's a deployment for Accor. It's a hospitality company, and it's a network that is approximately 10,000 access points distributed across more than 600 locations. Now, we also have a full edge and branch networking portfolio. So we make not only the wireless LAN access points that we'll be talking about today, but we do make wired switching and security appliances, as well as a free mobile device management solution. It's called Systems Manager, and I think we'll talk about that a little bit today as well. And for those of you who don't know, we were recently purchased by Cisco. We're going to be forming the Cisco Cloud Networking Group, And we're really excited about that because Cisco is committed to all 4 of the product lines I just mentioned, our access points, switches, security appliances, and mobile device management solutions. And basically, we are continuing as is. We're continuing on our product roadmaps. Don't foresee any changes to SLA or licensing from a customer perspective, and are just excited to be able to leverage Cisco's channel and reach to get more customers and expose more people to Meraki products. And I just wanted to throw this slide up here just to let you know that we do have a large number of K-12 campuses that we can call clients. This obviously is not a comprehensive list, but definitely shows you that we do service schools of different sizes and in different locations. And I should say that our customers really are our biggest fans, and if you see someone here that you want to talk to or go to our website, we actually, at our URL, meraki.com/customer, we have a whole bunch of case studies and interviews and things like that, and videos and information for you. If you go there and you find anyone that you might want to reach out to connect with, to hear about their experience with Meraki, we'd be more than happy to set up an introduction for you. Like I said, we hear from our customers all the time about how much they like our products, so definitely want to give you that option if you're curious about the Meraki customer experience. Now, one question we often get when we introduce Meraki is why cloud networking? And we believe the answer to that is fundamentally that the cloud increases IT efficiency. So in terms of manageability, scalability, and cost savings. And when we talk about manageability, we mean everything literally from configuration to maintenance and support to updating your infrastructure with new feature upgrades and things of that sort. So much easier when it's done through the cloud. Also in terms of scalability, we are massively scalable. Like I said, we do service the world's largest cloud networking deployment. There's no wireless LAN controller or AP limits that you would typically find with traditional architectures that we deal with from a Meraki cloud perspective. And very, very easy to add more access points or add more switches or add more security appliances to your network. We call it zero-touch configuration, and we'll probably talk more about that in this webinar. And then finally, cost savings. We do reduce operational costs. Like I said, you don't have any of that overlay hardware that you have to deal with, but it also means less travel time and training time for your IT staff. We have a really intuitive interface, and because we're cloud managed, you can literally manage your network from anywhere that you have an internet connection. So like I had mentioned earlier, we do have a full portfolio. You see all of our product lines here, the access points, switches, security appliances, and mobile device management. And everything that we make is 100% managed from the cloud. It's designed to be cloud managed. And all these products offer full networking and security features, which we'll definitely be talking about vis-a-vis the wireless LAN today. And so really quickly, because a lot of questions do come up, I do want to go over our cloud networking architecture with you. What you're seeing here on the left is sort of a schematic of how the cloud works. This would probably be for one site, maybe like a branch office or a site of that sort, and you could imagine multiple hardware sort of spread out all over the world, all kind of connecting back to the cloud. But it does start with the hardware, what you're seeing there on the left. So whether you have an access point or a switch or a security appliance, those devices connect back to Meraki's cloud. It's that blue line that you see there. We only collect management and monitoring data, so we call that an out-of-band cloud management control plane. So the user data is basically that red arrow that you see going off to the left. Whether that user data was targeted for something inside of your local area network or out to the internet, we don't ever see that. And so because we're out of band in this way, we're very secure. No user traffic, like I said, passes through the cloud. You can create HIPAA compliant, PCI compliant networks with our architecture. We actually are PCI compliant, level 1 certified. What I do want to say is, again, just to highlight these themes of scalability, reliability, and security. So like I hinted before, we don't really have the same sort of throughput or bottlenecks that you might find with a traditional architecture. Really easy to add sites, don't have the wireless LAN controller bottleneck for Wi-Fi. In terms of reliability, when we're talking about Meraki's cloud, we have multiple data centers all over the world. We have a really high 4 nines SLA on uptime. that we haven't defaulted on. And if your network, for some reason, loses connectivity to the internet, it will still continue to function as it is. When you make configuration changes and set settings from the cloud dashboard, those get pushed out to the devices. And so if you were to have, say, wireless SSIDs broadcasting, and then your network connectivity to the internet goes down, your network would still be up. Your SSIDs would still be broadcasting. Any firewall rules or configuration settings that you put in place would still be operational. You would still be able to authenticate with local Active Directory servers, that sort of thing. So really, really good feature to have that available, just being able to continue operating as normal while you work on getting your internet connectivity back up. These are a few of the features just in terms of speaking about the cloud and speaking about updates. Some of the things that we have rolled out to various Meraki devices with our updates, and I do want to touch on that briefly. Every quarter we do release firmware updates to the devices that you have. You have the option of opting out of updates, or you could schedule an update for a particular day and time, like a Sunday at 4 a.m. if you would like. But essentially you get a bunch of notifications via email and in the dashboard that an update is coming, and then you can decide how you want to approach that, whether you want to schedule the time or opt out of the update or whatnot. But essentially once you make a commitment to a time and a date, we take care of the rest. You don't have to download anything. There's no staging procedure that has to happen. You don't have to send someone on site to manually update devices. We push the update remotely from the cloud, and then the only downtime that your devices see is about the 30 seconds it takes to reboot. But these are the sorts of features that we're rolling out, and so you can see that the device that you buy today from Meraki won't be as good as the device that you have 3 years from now or a year from now or 5 years from now, whatever your license is. You'll have a better device then because we will have updated it and upgraded it and added a lot of new features. So that is the spiel on Meraki. Without any further ado, I do want to launch into the exciting part of our webinar where we get to talk to Bill. Hi, Bill. Are you on the line?
I am. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Thank you so much again for joining us. We're really excited to have you. I was wondering, for the benefit of those on the line, if you could just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about how you came to be the Chief Information and Technology Officer at the Edison Township District.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for having me today, Emily. I appreciate it. Good afternoon or morning to everyone. As Emily mentioned, my name is Bill McSorley. I'm the Chief Information and Technology Officer for Edison, and I was hired about 1.5 years ago. Haven't even been here 2 years yet to kind of overhaul the operations and infrastructure of the district. The district was in dire need of an upgrade, sort of across the board. The superintendent, who was my boss, was hired a few months before I was. He is a very big believer in technology and a big enabler of technology for myself and my staff. So he knew the importance of sort of upgrading and implementing new things in the district, and they brought me on to do that. So I came in, and since that time, we've overhauled virtually everything in the district, from the network on back to applications, wireless, of course, today's topic. I've expanded the staff. We've brought sort of best practices and procedures to a lot of things that they never had here. Implemented the disaster recovery site up the road a little bit from us, and that's so that we've done just an enormous amount of projects in 18 months, very fast-paced since we started this. So my background is technology on Wall Street. I was a Wall Street technology manager for a number of years. 12 years before coming here. I was a consultant for a long time, managed technology for various asset managers and hedge funds, private equity firms, and I was eventually brought on as CTO of a global private equity firm with offices in Hong Kong, London, Palo Alto, and then New York. That firm is where we did an enormous amount of technology. The difference, of course, between Wall Street and here is Wall Street has almost unlimited budget for technology. Any kind of advantage that they see, they'll spend money on. So there was quite a difference in sort of the available budget between Wall Street and here. Now, having said that, as I mentioned, the superintendent, my boss, because he was such a big believer in technology and convinced the board that we needed to spend a lot of money on technology, they've given me a very generous budget the last 2 budget cycles to implement all these different things that we've done. So I brought a bit of a different way of looking for things. I did not have a public education background. I came from the private sector in Wall Street, so I looked at things in a somewhat different way. The challenge, of course, was sort of bringing all those things I used to do into the public sector with, as I said, with a different budgetary mindset. But I think that we've done a pretty good job, all things considered, over the past 18 months. We've turned Edison into one of the showcase districts in the state, quite frankly.
Awesome. Awesome. And so again, just in the spirit of introduction, so I have some information here about the Edison Township Public Schools, and I was wondering if you could just walk us through that, talk us through what it looks like, what your network setup looks like.
Sure. The district is one of the largest in the state. New Jersey overall, I think, somewhere has around maybe 700 plus school districts, and quite a few for such a small state. Edison is one of the largest in the district. I believe we're 9th or 10th maybe at this point. It's about 15,000 students and 2,000 faculty, staff. We have 17 school buildings spread throughout Edison. Edison's a big town. There's 2 high schools, 4 middle schools, 11 elementary schools. So it's a fairly big place, and it's geographically dispersed. The network that we run is a hub and spoke, where everything runs back to here over a private fiber network and then out to the internet from here. We're redesigning some things for the future for redundant links at different schools and different gateways to the internet and things like that for redundancy. But right now it's all a hub and spoke design. I'm the CTO, and then I have 6 people who work for me. Very talented people that have been with the district, some of them for a long time, some of them within the last year only. But they do a fantastic job with all the things that we do here, and it's made my life and job a little bit easier with the talent that I've been fortunate enough to have here.
Oh, that's great. Out of curiosity, is your tech team housed in the same building, or are they also spread out amongst the various schools and locations?
They're housed all in the same building where I am.
Okay.
My main office is at the Board of Ed building here, where I'm speaking to everyone today from. The team members all sit in the same vicinity as me. As the staff expands, we're considering putting people dedicated towards different schools and some of the higher maintenance schools, like the high schools at this point. So, but for right now, they're all right here with me.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about your old network. You know, just an overview. How did you get to that point? What were the big challenges?
Sure, absolutely. So when I walked in the door a year and a half ago, the network consisted of the same basic design, same basic hub and spoke. It was a managed network by a well-known provider. The internet connectivity was 100 meg, and the interconnects between all the buildings and back to here was 10 meg, believe it or not.
Wow.
That was obviously not going to do it for anything, let alone all the sort of multimedia that we do in the district now. There's a lot of multimedia. There's a lot of YouTube. We have a large iPad initiative, which we'll get into in a few minutes, I imagine. But all the things that they were doing, they couldn't even stream video, let's put it that way, when I walked in the door. So when I came in and sort of sat down and looked at what we had to deal with, I recognized, well, the network itself needed to be upgraded. So that was problem one. The other problem was the switch infrastructure was based, there were hundreds of switches in the district. All of them were between maybe 4 to 10 years old. They were old. Well, they were all Nortel switches. It doesn't bother me naming the product. Now, there's nothing the matter with Nortel switches. However, these were very old. A lot of them were 10100. So the switch infrastructure needed to be upgraded completely. And one of the first things I did is met with the Board of Ed and told them that I'd very much like them to write me a check for 140 new Cisco switches. I wanted to replace the entire switch infrastructure. So after they got over their initial sort of sticker shock, they gave me the budget for that. And over the past 12 months, we've replaced every switch in the district. So every switch in the district has now been upgraded to Cisco switches. 140, I think, in total. Prior to me getting here, all of any kind of wireless connectivity in the district, from any of the schools, all 17 consisted of hundreds of unmanaged consumer-level routers, the Linksys or the Nicky or the Belkins and things like that. So as you can imagine, it was a bit of a mess with any kind of wireless connectivity, is that channels stepping on one another. Many of them were not password protected. So not only were the teachers or the staff members jumping onto these things, but the students would as well. They would bring devices in and connect on their own. So it was just this sort of mess of unmanaged infrastructure. So the consumer routers were unreliable. They broke all the time. They had no management whatsoever. They weren't secure. Obviously, the obvious problems that we would all see with this. So, and then a limited technology budget, again, prior to my arrival. So once we recognized that, and I sat down with the board and the superintendent, and we said we're going to provide wireless connectivity in several of the schools in the district moving forward. So when we're going to do that, we're going to manage it, and we're going to put in an enterprise-class wireless network, and we'll move forward with that. And that's sort of how we got to the point we're at today.
Okay, perfect. So I'm hearing a lot of concerns about security, manageability, that sort of thing. It leads fantastically into this next slide.
Sure.
Basically, what we're helping you do. I can read the bullet points here, but to sum up, it seems like you were looking for some centralized management. You wanted to get rid of some hardware controllers. Definitely looking for cost-effective solution to do that. Can you explain a little bit about what sort of Meraki products you're using and what you're using them for? I'm assuming wireless LAN, but what models, what buildings,
sure.
How many?
Absolutely. So all good bullet points here, especially with the hardware controller. I'm a big sort of fan and have been even since the Wall Street days, and prior to anyone calling it a cloud. Back then they were application service providers, but it was sort of the precursor to the word cloud. But I'm a big believer in moving as much as possible when it makes sense to a cloud for a lot of reasons. Ease of management, and generally the TCO will be lower. So when we came across Meraki and were introduced to them through our vendor, we realized that the hardware controller, there is no hardware controller. The controller is based in the cloud. So not only did I have to not buy controllers, redundant controllers, but I didn't have to power them and cool them in a data center. So moving those all off-site made a perfect sense to me, as long as I could still meet sort of the access control and the security mechanisms were still in place, and the performance. Obviously, it was all about the performance. That drives everything else. So when we were introduced to Meraki, we said, wow, that's great. Let's check out the dashboard. It was shown to myself and Jason Sheehy, who's my network engineer here. We sat down and looked at it, and were just, floored by sort of it was really well thought out, really put together by Meraki engineers, the dashboard and the management piece of this. So we started to look at it. They gave us some access points to try. It was an MR24, I think, that was originally given to us. So we actually brought it over to a school that had an existing wireless network that we were having some issues with coverage and throughput performance generally. So we put the MR24 literally side by side next to an existing access point with a hardware-based controller on site. So we put that in and we tested it. And the Meraki MR24 just blew it away as far as performance and throughput went. And we said, well, we may really have something here. Meraki was a relatively new company to me, and I wasn't that familiar with them. We had demos, and we were being approached by many, many vendors. I'm sure everyone on the call today is well familiar with all the vendors out there that are doing this, sort of the big players in the market. All of them really wanted to sort of come in and talk to us and try to get our business. So after a search, and we did A/B comparisons to what we had, we brought in other vendors' products, we tried many different products, and we decided on the Meraki for several reasons, performance being one of them, ease of use and management. The cloud-based controller and cloud-based access was just was really easy thing to do. We did not have to dedicate any staff to the management of the wireless network, so all of my team are able to log in and manage it. We're training several of them now, and it's so easy, and it lends itself to easy management and easy changes on the fly against a distributed network like we have. Scalability is nice. No controllers, and the TCO for Meraki was actually less over the 5 years. I always do sort of a 5-year TCO comparison. The TCO for Meraki over 5 years was less than competing products. So we deployed last summer we deployed Meraki in 3 different schools, 2 middle schools and 1 high school. There's over 200 access points that we put in, and they went in about a week and a half. Vendor again came in, did a fantastic job, and hung them up. And it was configuring them was we entered the serial numbers into the dashboard, and they started to come up immediately as soon as they had connectivity and power. That was it. We started to see them. We could rename them and tag them and start adding SSIDs to all the different schools. We were able to import our floor plans into the Meraki interface and overlay the APs on top of them, so we all knew physically which AP was where. We used last summer I believe we used 200 MR24s, so we did not go with any of the 16s then. We really went with sort of the big gun, the 24, which has 900 megs throughput. The MR24s have turned out to be just fantastic. We probably could have scaled back slightly in some of the schools on that, but again, the coverage is excellent right now. We are planning now deployment of Meraki in additional high school, the second high school, and some of the other schools, if budget allows, moving forward, and the BOE office where I am. The Board of Ed office is a central location where administrative staff is housed. We're going to be actually implementing Meraki in that very soon, probably in the next several weeks. So that will be a combination of MR24s and MR16s. So the 16s are certainly more than adequate depending on the need and depending on parts of the building. One of the big things, the really appealing things about the Meraki is, with the 24s or the 16s, is that all of the buildings in our district were built generally time frame around 1950s, maybe mid-50s. And the way that those things were built were basically bomb shelters, right? I mean, a lot of schools were built in that mentality back then, especially during that time. So we've got a lot of very thick concrete walls, and then of course there's lockers, there's metal, right? So there's a lot of, it's not a hospitable environment for wireless, is my point. So my concern when we first started looking at this and started looking at vendors were, who are we going to put in there and who was going to be able to perform at a really high level, high density, a lot of student laptops, iPads, netbooks. I'm looking at Chromebooks now. We're piloting a Chromebook problem now, pilot program now. You know, who was going to be able to do this and get around sort of those, the bigger problem is sort of those concrete walls that are so thick. So Meraki's done a fantastic job with that. Coverage is just amazing and has done a fantastic job even in sort of a challenging structural environment of these old schools and these old buildings. So they've done a fine job with that. Really good job.
That's awesome. Glad to hear it. I get a lot of questions at trade shows and things about high-density deployments. I was wondering, do you have any numbers? Are you putting these in classrooms with X number of students, or is there any other details you can share about the high-density?
Sure. The high-density, we put them both in classrooms and in sort of public locations such as a cafeteria or a library. Now, because we're a K-12 district, we do a lot of standardized testing. And because of that, sometimes in a cafeteria or a gym, a lot of students will have to do a standardized test, a lot of them at the same time. We've gotten easily maybe 40, 50 devices on one AP at one time, upwards of 40 and 50. Now that's not really the ideal, but again, depending on where these things are located and where the students are during the standardized testing windows, we'll sort of adjust it accordingly. We meet with the principals and talk to them about where the ideal. We'll put a class of 25 in with a class that may have an AP in the corner, and that would be more than sufficient, because a lot of the standardized tests, at least in New Jersey, are going towards a web-based thing. So you don't need a ton of bandwidth. You just need connectivity.
Okay.
Consistent connectivity. So
great, thank you. So moving right along, it looks like you're using bandwidth controls and traffic shaping and the ability, all of our APs support up to 15 SSIDs. Maybe just speak a little bit more to this slide and speak to how this has helped, or
Sure.
Have you been able to were you able to even have any of this kind of functionality in your previous setup?
Absolutely. So pretty straightforward. I think everyone listening would be pretty familiar with what we're doing here. So we use standard 4 SSIDs at each location. An admin, which is hidden and not broadcast. The admin is only for the technical group and myself. It's not broadcast, can't be seen, so we're the only ones who know it's there. So that one is for troubleshooting or just when we need to look at things when we go there on site. The staff, student, and guest networks are all set up. The staff has no bandwidth restrictions, no throttling on it. The staff can do pretty much anything they want bandwidth-wise. Now keep in mind, please, that every public school district is behind a web filter. Everything is filtered here from start to finish, as you can imagine, for obvious reasons. So everyone is subject to a web filter, but the Meraki, you can also do some of that. We're not really doing it for a filtering component now, but we do it with other components. So staff has no restrictions. The student are restricted with bandwidth limitations. We do that because we don't want them abusing the network or watching YouTube videos all day. We do use YouTube in the district, and it is allowed, but we certainly don't want kids standing there all day watching YouTube and using up all the bandwidth. Access control and group policies by device type. We can label them all accordingly and see what we're dealing with and just do a search in the dashboard for, let me see all iPads at a particular school, and we can take a look at that. Take a look at who's using bandwidth. If we see anomalies or excessive bandwidth, we'll investigate further. That's another nice feature of the MDM, which we'll talk about in a minute. It's used for, as I mentioned earlier, we use this for standardized testing in computer labs. We have a big iPad initiative in the district for math, world language, art, special needs kids. The superintendent is a big fan of iPads, as am I, and we use a lot of iPads for various initiatives in the district. That just keeps to be expanding and expanding. The guest network, heavily throttled. We don't give it a lot of bandwidth. You have to do a click-through splash page if you want to access the network. Group policies by device type, again, just like with the student, and we use this in sort of public areas. So we have a lot of public Board of Ed meetings, or there'll be basketball games in a gym, in an auditorium, parent meetings. So when parents come in, they can get right on the guest network, and they can use their devices that well. Again, somewhat restricted, not unfettered access, but it turns out to be, it's a nice little thing when you come in and guests can use this without actually touching the student or the staff, certainly not the staff network. So it's a nice feature to have, and again, it's turned out to be just a nice little, sort of an icing on the cake thing when people come in to use the guest network. They're always very appreciative when they're in the schools with it. So we couldn't do any of this before with the consumer level routers. Obviously, not only would they not be managed, but you know, they were just, sometimes they would create loops on the network and bring down maybe a closet or a switch. I mean, it was just a nightmare with all of these things being unmanaged and having no control. Like most IT people, I'm sort of a control freak a little bit about things. And that, you know, having no control and no management and no insight into what was going on, it was a free-for-all, quite frankly, and it just did not work out well at all. Created a lot of problems for us.
So were your IT staff finding themselves in the old days, you know, frequently going out then to buildings and trying to troubleshoot stuff? And do they still frequent buildings as often, or are they able to kind of remotely manage it from?
Well, that's the beauty now, is that virtually everything we do is remote management of the wireless network. The only time we would have to go on site would be if there was a hardware problem. Now, having said that, since we've put the Meraki in, we've had 0 problems with the access points. 0. We have next day replacement on them. I believe it's next day. We've had absolutely no problems with the hardware itself. So it's all remote management. We can do it from home. We can do it from our desks at our office. I can do it on an iPad in my car if I have to on the way home.
Great. We do have one question that's popping up, if you are able to answer, which is, are each of these locations or each of these schools, I guess, set up as a separate network, and can you roam between the locations?
You can. They are a separate network. Yes.
Okay.
Each location is a separate network. So you're not roaming. There's different passwords on different SSIDs at each school. So no. The reasoning behind that is we actually wanted it. It was intentional. We wanted them all separate for the different schools. Because the schools are so geographically dispersed, it's not like you're going to walk out of one school and go 20 feet to the other school, right? So we wanted them not only geographically separated, which they are, but, you know, technically separated as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the next slide, I guess, is sort of summarizing all the great things that you've said, results of the network. So better performance in these old buildings. Seems like folks at your institution are really excited about the Wi-Fi, real Wi-Fi network, Wi-Fi everywhere. Anything else you want to add here?
Well, the Wi-Fi network sort of everywhere. I think everyone sort of expects to have Wi-Fi everywhere these days. It's just, it's almost an expectation when you go out. Even with Optimum hotspots, I use Optimum at home, and I can go to, if I'm waiting for a train to go to New York, I can get an Optimum hotspot at the train station. So there's this expectation of sort of Wi-Fi everywhere. Now, having said that, it's a real Wi-Fi network. It's not just happenstance and sort of things put together and kludged together. It's a real managed enterprise, I consider an enterprise level network, wireless network that works. And the beauty of it is when no one says anything about the wireless network, that's when you know it's successful.
Right.
I mean, when they don't talk about it, they just use it, and they don't talk about it, they don't complain about it, they don't, that's it. It's just, it's invisible to them, which is the way it should be. And when it's transparent and no one ever discusses it, but they use it, and they clearly use it. I'm looking at our network right now with the data transfers, and today, that's when you know you succeeded, when it's sort of transparent and invisible to them, and it just works, right? Just works. That's what we want.
Totally. So I do want to shift gears just slightly because this came up, and I think it's a great story, and totally want to hear your thoughts on this. But we do have a blog post on this scenario at our blog at Meraki. But you provided Wi-Fi in the wake of Hurricane Sandy to folks.
We did.
Talk about this
We did. So yeah, it's a good point. Thanks, Emily, for bringing it up. The Hurricane Sandy situation. Obviously, everyone knows how bad it was. Very bad situation here in New Jersey and in the Northeast in general. So after Sandy came through, all of us and everyone in Edison, I don't live in Edison. I live about 40 miles away. So at first, the first couple days, I couldn't even get out of my town. I mean, there was literally trees and telephone poles blocking virtually every exit. My team couldn't get here. No one could really move. And electricity was down pretty much everywhere. So what we were able to do is I actually, as the storm passed and the sun came out a day or two later, I was able to log into the dashboard from home. I had power at home. I was logged into the dashboard, and I was able to see that not only our network was up, but all of the Meraki access points had power and were transmitting data at one of our high schools. We had several schools down because of a fiber cut, but the bulk of the network was up, and our internet in our private fiber network stayed up throughout. So I knew that the network was up because I could see it on the dashboard. I could see everything was green and everything was moving data around. So as a matter of fact, the dashboard told me that we had power in Edison, at least part of the town, before the electric company did. So the electric company, of course, had their hands full that week, and they weren't really able to respond to pretty much anyone. They were so busy, and they had so many issues. I felt very bad for their teams, but I didn't actually need a call back. I could see that I had power at JP, and I got on the phone with my boss and said, look, we got power here, the network's up, I know that. So the decision was made within a couple of days that JP Stevens, one of the high schools here in Edison, was going to be opened up and used as a warming center for the community. Many people in Edison had no power for a long period of time. So the warming center was opened up. People go into the library, and they could use the Wi-Fi. They could use the Meraki Wi-Fi network. What we did is I opened up the networks I removed the bandwidth restrictions. I did it from home, I think probably from my iPad, and it took about 30 seconds. Immediately opened up, and as people were coming in, there were hundreds of people using this warming center the entire week, right after the storm passed. And it was a huge thing for them because Edison has population from all over the world, and they were able to communicate with people in India and in Europe and tell them that they were okay and that everything was all right. So they had a place to go. They could charge their devices, and the network took a beating. Honestly, we moved a lot of data that week. Hundreds and hundreds of gigs of data moved that week. People, even if they were just watching video, with the kids, they would come in with their children and stay in the library for a few hours to get warm and to amuse their kids for a while on an iPad, and it was a great thing. But the big thing for the Meraki was it was a really good sort of a shining light in a very, very tough week, both personally and professionally. it was just such a hard time for everyone. And it was a great thing for us to be able to provide this, and the community appreciated it. But the network took a beating and didn't miss a beat. There was no problems. I mean, not that wireless access to the internet was not the biggest concern on everyone's mind. However, like I said before, that transparency and the invisibility of it, the network worked fine under very heavy stress and a lot of data movement without missing a beat. Didn't miss a beat. There was absolutely no problems after that. So a week later, as people came back in and as the district was reopening, I was here several days with my team and with my network engineer, and we brought up some reports and saw what people were doing that week, and hundreds of gigs of data were moved. Didn't miss a beat, no problems whatsoever. So
that's a great story. Thank you for sharing. That's fantastic. And as I said earlier, for those of you on the call, if you want to read a little bit more about it in depth, you should definitely check out Meraki's blog, because there was a post on this and gives you a little bit more detail as well. So, moving on in the interest of time, wondered if you could just very quickly highlight how you're using Systems Manager, which is our free mobile device management solution, and what are your plans for BYOD in the future? I know you've been talking about iPads, so.
Sure. So the MDM, bit of a misnomer. We don't really refer to it as the mobile device manager anymore here. We just refer to it as the device manager. And the reason for that is the agent, the mobile device agent that you can install on iPads or laptops or things like that, we actually have now instituted that and implemented it on our builds for PCs. Okay. And the reason for that is we found it to be really helpful in sort of systems management for not only in all of our mobile devices and iPads, but for desktops as well. You can give all kinds of information, insights, again, through a web-based dashboard, which is just great. You can remote desktop into devices if you need to. We began putting it on the build for all the new computers in the district last fall. We've replaced, I think, about 1,000+ computers over the past 18 months. It's on the build now for all PCs as well as iPads. It gives us the ability to send notifications to people if we need to. We'll notice they're downloading 20 gigs of data in a day at a high school, and my network admin will send them a little pop-up device saying, you have exceeded your network capabilities for the day. We're going to shut it down until we see what you're doing here. So it gives us insight, in granular insight into the devices, what we're doing. It'll give us CPU, network bandwidth, all kinds of things. So it's a very, very powerful tool. We've deployed it on over 2,400 clients so far. Obviously, it's installed on our mobile devices such as iPads. As I mentioned earlier, we use a lot of iPads, and we have a lot of initiatives in the district. It enables us to do iOS app configuration and application installs from the device manager. It's been a really nice thing to have because it just makes management of that, as everyone knows, iPads are kind of difficult to manage. I mean, Apple does not make it easy. And so when we saw what this thing could do for iPads, we were just amazed, and we said, wow, we've got our solution, we've got our MDM. It happens to be free. I mean, amazingly, right? It's sort of an add-on, almost, I don't want to say an afterthought, but it's probably turned out to be just an amazingly important thing for us here. One of the things we also allow our teachers to do is that we give them control, full access to the iPads in their classroom, and they can enable something from the dashboard called single app mode. And what that enables you to do is that the teachers can say, during this class for the next time period that I'm teaching the kids, so to keep them focused, this app is the only thing that can be used on my iPads. My 25 iPads, you can only use Safari, or you can only use the algebra app, or whatever. It keeps the kids focused, doesn't allow them to go on 100 different things during the time period. So it's very, very powerful. The MDM is very, very powerful, and it's free. And I mean, we looked at other MDM solutions that were costly, a bit more complicated, and this is amazing. The device manager has turned out to be a huge plus for us, really important thing.
That's awesome. I hear that a lot too when I travel at trade shows, that people are really excited about that. I want to learn a little bit more about it, and I'll show you guys briefly. This is the last slide actually before the demo, so I'll definitely touch on how you can get Systems Manager if you guys are interested on the call. Bill, thank you so much for joining us. Here's the wrap-up slide. Anything else that you want to add or talk about how you're moving forward? Any plans for that?
Well, we're looking to implement more as budget allows and as planning allows, and it will sort of build out sort of the enterprise network moving forward. So if anyone on the call today wants to reach out to me, certainly you can make my email available if you want, or they can contact Meraki. I'm happy to talk about this, and it's you know, as tech people, I mean, we all seen so many products over the years, and it's nice to get really excited about a product that really, A, that works well, but B, makes your job and your life a lot easier, and this happens to be one of them. So I'm happy to talk to them about Meraki, either potential or current deployments or planning or whatever they want to do. I'm happy to discuss it with them.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Bill. Really appreciate your time and for taking the opportunity to come talk to us today. If you guys have any questions, definitely keep them coming. We'll see if there's a way to get them answered if there's time after. And again, any of your questions are going to be going to Meraki reps after, so if they're technical questions, don't fear if we don't get to them. They will be answered. Someone will be getting in touch with you. Just want to say thanks again, Bill. And without further ado, in the remaining time that we have, I'm going to actually give you guys a demo of the Meraki dashboard. So you can see I have been timed out, which is one of the security features that we have here. And let's see if this works. All right, perfect. So for those of you who are looking at my screen, what you see is the Meraki dashboard. So I've logged in with my dashboard credentials to our dashboard here in San Francisco. So this is all live data from Meraki's corporate networks. If you were a customer of ours, you would have a similar view for your networks. Basically, this is the overview page that you get sort of dumped into when you initially log in, but it gives you a very quick overview of where your networks are in the world, what their status is. You can deep dive into any of them or click into any of these little icons to get a closer look at where your devices are and where your networks are and what the status is. Obviously, red means something is down. What I'm going to do, since I know everything that is officially part of our network has Meraki Corp in the name, I'm going to dive into our wireless network that way. And there's a couple different view options. I'll show you this one first. So this is sort of the overview page for our wireless network, and this is when you get your free access point, you'll see something similar when you set it up. Essentially, the green indicates it's a healthy access point. The numbers indicate the recent connections to that access point, or actually it might be, current clients. So here's the recent number of different unique devices that have connected to these access points in the last day. Here are the actual current clients on our network. And you can see that if they were yellow or red, or if they've been offline for a while and were gray, give you a different indication of status. One thing that's actually pretty fun in the map view is if you have a floor plan view, you can actually upload a floor plan and drag your APs to wherever they are actually geographically located on that floor. So it makes troubleshooting a little bit easier. If you have folks in a particular area saying they're having connectivity problems, you can log in really quickly and see whether or not that access point is green or whether or not it's having some trouble. But what I'm going to do is actually deep dive into an access point. Looks like there's a bunch of current clients here, so I might get some interesting information. This is what you would do. You would pull up the overview of your network, find an AP that you want to look into. You can click into it that way, or you could always click on this access points page here and get a whole list of your access points and click into an access point that way. But once you click in, basically you get a whole bunch of interesting configuration and status information, so things like its MAC address and its serial number, what kind of access point this is. So this is the MR24s. We were actually talking about those in our presentation today. You can see which SSIDs or which networks are being broadcast out of this particular access point. So we have 3 here at Meraki, a corporate account, a guest account, a VIP account. And then you get some information about IP addresses. I could click here if I wanted to see all of the clients that have connected to this particular access point in this particular day. And because we are, how should I say, we eat our own dog food, we use Meraki equipment in our own network, we do get the full end-to-end visibility, not just of our wireless, but of our wired network. So I can even see that this particular access point is plugged into port 2 of the Core 3 switch. And if I wanted to, I could click on the Core 3 switch, get a similar configuration page for the switch, and even click down into the port and get status information there. And then, oh, look, there's our access point that we were on, and I can click back into the access point and get information about it. So it's very, very easy to switch to and from networks and hop between different devices within the Meraki dashboard. And I'll show you the overview access points page too that I alluded to earlier. So again, you could get just a list of access points if you don't want to see them geographically, and connectivity for the past week. And again, I can deep dive into an access point and get some information about it. And if you scroll down, one thing that's really neat about our hardware devices is that each of them have a live tools section in their configuration page. And the live tools will be slightly different depending on the device. But here you can see we have the current clients tool for this access point. So this is live data about the clients connected. And if I wanted to, here they are. Here's a list of them. I could click into any one of these clients and see where it's located geographically. So clearly at our headquarters here in San Francisco. And scroll down and see usage patterns. So see exactly, what kinds of traffic this particular client device has been consuming. And even if I'm a network admin and I have this feature turned on, you can toggle it off for privacy reasons if you'd like. But I can see the specific destinations that this client has been to in terms of over the web and applications, and how much active time they've actually spent at each of those destinations. So really interesting and unique data there. And one thing that I do want to highlight is when we're talking about an individual client device, you can actually go down and make policy decisions at that granular level. So if this particular device, let's see, there's a lot of Flash or non-web. I mean, if this had been YouTube or if this had been Netflix, for example, I could very easily come down here, block this client from my wireless network, and type in a little message that would pop up on their screen if they were on the wrong side of a policy that I had about using Netflix. I could, if I wanted to, apply a particular policy to an individual device, or apply that policy based on which SSID they connect to. So if this is a corporate device, I could, for example, block them entirely from my VIP and guest network and set a bandwidth abusers policy if they were using too much Netflix. So I know we are getting a little close on time, so I'm going to highlight some of the big features. I know I had a question about how to show group policies by device type, so we're going to get there momentarily. I do want to just show you this page because this is perhaps the most favorite page of clients. It's essentially, what I like to say is when you're in the dashboard, you're literally using a real-time configurable report, because depending on the way that you slice your time and the particular filters that you use, you get different data presented to you. So what we're looking at here in this clients page is all of the clients that have connected to our corporate wireless network here at Meraki for the last week across all of our SSIDs. So again, every access point supports up to 15 SSIDs. Now I can do some really cool things like search for iPads. Actually, let me make sure that you can tell that that is an iPad. So OS and manufacturer. Where are they? Ah, they're way over here. Let's move them over a little bit, just so you can see. So when I did that search, dynamically, automatically in the background, we filtered all of the 443 devices that have connected to our wireless network based on whether or not they are an iPad. So we can see that we've had 18 iPads connect to our network in the last week, and here they all are. I can also do some really fun things like search by operating system. So Windows, for example. So we can see that about half of the devices that have connected to our network in the last week are Windows devices. And again, I could click into any one of these and drill down, and you would see the view that we had seen previously with the particular client that I demoed. But one cool, unique feature is that this graph changes. So the gold color basically is matching the search term here. So we're seeing that of our total bandwidth usage for the last week, the Windows devices are maybe about half of the clients connecting, but they take up most of the bandwidth. So really neat way to very quickly see what kinds of devices and usage is happening on your network. And it literally gets down to, you know, how many Windows 8 devices do we have? Do we have Windows XP devices connecting? Yes, we do, unfortunately. So you can search by IP address, MAC address, the operating system, user if you're plugged into Active Directory, all kinds of different search terms that you can search by to filter this data. Now, because we're cloud-based, in the background we do algorithmically classify and tag lots of different, hundreds I should say, different applications and websites. And we're constantly updating that. And so we know what kind of traffic is passing through your network. You don't have to tell us what devices are connecting. You don't necessarily have to tell us what kind of traffic is passing through it. We already know. So we can give that information to you in a format like this. And you could very easily click into any one of these applications and say, here's the top consumers of YouTube. Here's where they're going. And again, click into any one of these guys and set a particular policy about YouTube if you wanted to. Now, where do you set these policies? If you want to actually set a policy for groups of devices or groups of users, you would come into the group policies page. We have a bunch of policies already defined for Meraki, but I'm going to pretend like I'm making a new one. And in the interest of time, I'm going to get to what's really important, which is this. What you can do is you can block at a layer 7 level. So I could, if I wanted to, very easily say I don't want any peer-to-peer traffic on my wireless network, or maybe I'm just concerned with BitTorrent. Now, if I don't want to block traffic, but I actually want to just throttle it in some way, so that YouTube traffic that we saw earlier perhaps, and maybe just some Spotify, if those were the two applications that were problematic, I could choose a limit and throttle. So this is not a QoS feature. It doesn't just pop in only when your network is saturated. It applies immediately. You can go ahead and set QoS tagging if you would like, but essentially what this would do is if I saved this change and then applied it to groups of devices, basically no peer-to-peer BitTorrent traffic would be allowed, and their YouTube and Spotify usage would be throttled at 500 kilobits per second immediately. So here's how you would automatically apply policies by device type. So we saw earlier that you can do things like find iPads, find iPhones, find Android devices on your network through searching. So we call that device fingerprinting, and we're able to tell what kind of devices are connecting to your network. What you could do is come here, say assign group policies by device type, pick your device type. Maybe I want to keep BlackBerries off my network entirely, and I don't know, have a particular policy for iPads and a particular policy for maybe just whitelist Androids. Now if I hit save for this particular SSID, which is a guest SSID, we have a whole bunch we could be choosing from this particular SSID, what this would mean is I don't necessarily have to know who's bringing what onto my network. I know that regardless, if it's a BlackBerry, it's going to be blocked from this SSID. If it's an iPad, it's going to get this particular policy. If it's an Android, it's going to be whitelisted. So really great feature and a great way to sort of plug and play and manage devices that might be BYOD by device type. One thing to note here, we don't really have that much time because I know we're getting to the top of the hour, but we do support a full range of association and authentication requirements. You can authenticate to a SSID using a pre-shared key. We support WPA2 and WEP. You can, if you want, plug into a radius server, so Active Directory, LDAP, radius server, and authenticate that way. And then we do have a whole bunch of splash page options, so you can have a click-through splash page. You can, if you want, enable two-factor authentication, so you know, to get in, they have to actually respond to a text message that comes on their phone. One nice feature that is in beta, but that was just released with Systems Manager, is you can, if you want now, prevent devices from connecting to a wireless SSID unless they have your Systems Manager profile installed. So unless you're managing them through Systems Manager. And really quickly, in the 2 minutes maybe that we have left, I'm just going to show you Systems Manager really quickly. So Systems Manager is 100% free. You'll be dumped into a view similar to what we just saw, where you can go and see all of your devices that are enrolled with your Systems Manager profile or the Systems Manager agent. We support iOS, Androids, Macs, PCs. Where it gets really fun is the clients page, because what you can do is do the same sorts of searching that we had done before, so iPads, iPhones, Androids, that sort of thing. And you can click into any one of these devices and get a really detailed overview of where it is geographically. So this guy is in England. Some very useful statistics about it. And then you can do things like lock the device, erase it, clear its passcode, send it a notification, request its GPS location, and see what's installed in terms of profiles, applications, and recent activity. And like Bill alluded to, you can, once you have devices, group them into profiles and then go ahead and manage those profiles with things like restrictions and passcode settings, and setting up Wi-Fi templates so that devices can automatically enroll in networks that might have pre-shared keys and whatnot. So a lot of very, very useful features, and I know we are running over time. I want to be sensitive to that. I'm going to actually continue. If you do have some time, stick with us, because we probably have maybe 2 minutes of slides. But if you need to leave and you have a question, please type it in now, and we will be getting back to you through our account reps. So just very quickly, for those of you who may not know, we do have indoor and outdoor models of our access points. We do have a lifetime warranty on all of our indoor APs. So all the features that you see here on the right, guest access, enterprise security, we have integrated wireless intrusion protection through our Air Marshal feature. All of that's included in a license. You just get an access point, you get a license, and you get all the things that you saw here today that were demoed. We have 6 models of security appliances, so everything from a small branch office all the way to larger headquarters, so things on the order of 10,000 users. A whole bunch of features there that you can see on the right. The same layer 7 visibility, the same sort of device fingerprinting is available across all of our product line. So the switches, the access points, and the security appliances, and that's all built in. And the MX security appliance can also traffic shape, so you can throttle traffic and block at layer 7 as well. And then finally, we do have a great line of switches. They are layer 2 switches. They come in 24 and 48 port models, and you do have the ability to get a switch with PoE support. We do support voice and video QoS, and same sort of deal with the layer 7 application visibility. And we have a great feature called virtual stacking, which we can't really get into today, but essentially it lets you see all of the ports on all the switches in your organization, regardless of where they are geographically located, and you can make configuration and management changes to all ports or groups of ports at once from anywhere. So really nice feature. And then finally, Systems Manager, which we've been talking about today. So if you do want to get started with Systems Manager, just go to our website, Meraki.com. There's going to be a little link. It says MDM. If you click that and then click on the big blue Get Started Now button, you'll be prompted to register for a dashboard account, and you can get started today. This sort of sums up what we've been talking about, some of the benefits of being in the cloud. One thing I want to highlight is if any of our gear looked interesting to you, we do offer free evaluations on all of it. There's no risk, no commitment. We'll pay the shipping both ways. Just go to Meraki.com/eval and we'll get you started. So that wraps us up. I apologize for being slightly over. If you have questions and haven't asked them, now is a good time to do so. And we will make sure that Meraki reps get back to you with the answers to those questions. So thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. And please, if you have time, take a moment to fill out the 2-question poll at the end. We're always trying to improve our webinars, so your feedback is really important to us. Thanks again for your time.